Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to Tekpon. Today our guest is Ian, the CEO and founder at Hyperise. Hello.
Christian, hey, nice to meet you. Thanks for having me today.
Nice to meet you. Please tell us what your company does.
Hyperise essentially is a personalization platform. What that really means is that we can create personalized experiences that drive engagement and get more people, taking your call to action or just grabbing people's attention, essentially.
I found it fascinating, so I'm super excited to dive in. Please tell us your best features in your opinion.
Yeah, so ultimately the most effective feature, which I think is the best feature, is the image personalization. And the reason for that is that the human brain processes images like 60,000 times quicker than text. So when you have an image, it's really powerful at conveying information. Of course, we all know that because people talk about, an image, paints 1,000 words, all that sort of thing. But because images are processed so quickly, when you have personalization inside an image, it triggers what's referred to as a pattern interrupt. Essentially, that's just the subconscious brain seeing something first and kind of shouting, hey, pay more attention to this. And that kind of friction, that pattern interrupt, that psychological behavior just leads to more mind share and ultimately more people taking your call to action. So we see companies using these personalized images in outreach, in email, in LinkedIn, etc., and doubling or even tripling their engagement rates. So, I mean, certainly that's a feature that all of our customers, really love.
What types of personalization do you have? So you have images, video, and also text, right?
Yeah, so website personalization. So you can personalize your existing website, any landing page, homepage, your blog page, etc. As you said, images and videos too, but also we can create video pages, so where you have like your video, maybe like a Calendly sort of thing underneath. And so what you can do is you can kind of link all of these up to create like true hyper personalization. So if someone might click a link or an image in a message and then lead to a personalized landing page and maybe even a personalized video on that page.
Fantastic. And regarding the platforms, I saw also LinkedIn, chatbots. Can you walk us through to the different?
Yeah, basically anywhere where you can place an image, or use some sort of kind of outreach like that, then you can use Hyperise. So obviously most people are kind of typically using LinkedIn, for business engagement or email, but also chatbots, or even, printed media. So a lot of our customers, they're kind of using, like, say, Amazon for outreach. They never get the digital details of those contacts, but they do have their postal address. So creating a postcard that's personalized to each recipient, maybe with a scannable QR code, which then leads the client to a personalized landing page, that is incredibly powerful. Obviously, a bit kind of combining offline and online together.
Yeah, exactly. And more on the technical side, how does it work? How do you get all this data?
So essentially there's kind of a couple of parts. So let's say, for example, you're using HubSpot as your CRM, then obviously you've already got a tremendous amount of data in there on your clients, maybe their email address, obviously first name, last name, maybe a website, etc. So all of that information is kind of integrated, or the platform is integrated with Hyperise, and so that information becomes available when you send out a campaign. If you think about it from an email template perspective, you have placeholders in there, first name, last name, etc. Images and other personalized assets are exactly the same. You put placeholders in there, and those placeholders are replaced dynamically, like as in a mail merge. But what we also do is layer on top of that firmographic enrichment. So essentially, like business assets. So if we have a business email or a domain, then we can get screenshots of the website. We can get logos, etc. And so, it's that kind of data enrichment as well that we layer on top. With the base data that you have.
I understand. What are the use cases of the product?
So there's a couple really, but I think they broadly fall into two camps. And the first of those is kind of one of the things you can do with Hyperise is create humanized images. So that might be, like say me kind of waving like this, but maybe like holding something like a placeholder, and then that placeholder get replaced with a personalized ticket, for example. So I might be a salesperson and I want to reach out. And so creating that a kind of humanized, personalized image leads to creating stronger relationships, and more trust. And so we have a lot of like SDRs and BDRs, ABM sort of kind of workers who use this as part of their initial outreach, like I say, to create that initial human connection. And so that kind of humanized sort of image. We also have lots of digital agencies and SaaS businesses marketing type campaigns where they're using visualization.
How important is personalization nowadays? You probably agree that it's the only differentiator that you.
Yeah, well, I think if you look at the number of messages that we're all exposed to on a daily basis, there was a recent article or study, should I say, done in the New York Times, and they suggested there was over 5,000 messages a day that we're exposed to. And so, of course, we've all got the same amount of time in every day. And so what's happening is the amount of time we have to grab somebody's attention is reducing. And, it's literally just a couple of seconds now because we're so adept to filtering out messages, and that sort of thing. So to be able to stand out and grab people's attention has never been more important. There's obviously becoming more so, every day as more and more people are out there, bombarding our prospects with other messages. So to be able to stand out, to be able to be effective in your outreach has never been more important.
I totally agree. What are our best integrations?
Well, Hyperise, I think one of the strong points is that we're kind of can work with any sort of platform. So we integrate with pretty much every CRM out there, every email outreach platform, many LinkedIn automation tools. And so I think in terms of best integration, I think it's not necessarily one specific one because they're all universal in terms of how we do that integration. But it's the number of them that I think is the thing that stands out rather than any specific one.
How competitive is your market?
It's quite a nascent market, to be honest. There aren't that many players in the market that are actually, in fact, there aren't any other players at all that are doing exactly what we do in terms of like this true hyper personalization. Obviously, there are specific kind of players within each of those kind of silos, like say just website personalization. There's Optimizely, for example, who were recently bought out by Adobe for several billion. So they're certainly the kind of the king, if you like, in website personalization. But they don't do video personalization and they don't do image personalization. So they don't kind of have a kind of a full kind of like for like product. And then maybe in image personalization, there's maybe like Nifty Images, who have probably been the longest standing player in the industry, but they don't have in the video or the website personalization. And so there's no one particular competitor that we come up with regularly, because like I said, there's no one really offering that kind of full suite that we do, and obviously that helps. Sorry, go on.
No, please continue.
No, I was just going to say, from an implementation perspective, as many of our customers aren't technical, being able to have one solution that manages all of that is tremendous help to them. And so I think that's, we don't really have a true competitor in that sense.
That's awesome. I'm super happy for you. And how did you come up with the idea?
Well, I've been running SaaS businesses, or online businesses, should I say, for the last 20 odd years. And personalization is something, a strategy that I've always lent on because it's always been the most effective strategy that we've had in our kind of armory, if you like. But up until recently, with the evolution of data enrichment and cloud computing, it hasn't been possible to kind of do this, in real time, as our platform does. But I'll just give you a real quick story of how it first came to be. My first business that I started back in 1999, so a long time ago, like 24 years ago now. It's crazy to think that. We were selling online cars, so cars built to order. So whether it's from Ford, Ferrari, and everything in between, you could go to our website, spec the car up, and we'll place the order directly with the manufacturer and deliver it straight to your door, cutting out the dealer networks and saving 20-30%. But one of the things we used to do, bear in mind this was back in 99, we used to print off like the quote pack and send it in the post. Crazy to think that now. But what we found is the more pictures of the vehicle that we put on there, the higher chance of conversion. And we also had a great source of kind of additional revenue through affiliate partnerships, to supplement the kind of the deal. And one of those was private number plates. And what we used to do this manually. We used to put on the front-facing picture of the vehicle the best matching private number plate based on the client's name. And so we'd do that manually in like Photoshop essentially. And we had one person employed just to do that. but we sold more number plates and made more money from that than we actually did selling the cars. And that was kind of the light bulb moment for me, at the time. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And fast forward, let's say 24 years, and we've now got a platform that, rather than having to hire somebody full time to do that, you can just automate that completely. And so that's always been the goal, for many, many years. But like I say, it's just the kind of the convergence of technology that now enables that.
No, that's fantastic, and probably that is the future with hyper personalization. So, well,
Yeah.
I find it amazing. How big is your team right now?
We're a very small business organization, and we leverage kind of remote workers as much as possible. So we're two founders, and we have a small support team of 4 people, and then a small development team of 5 people. But what we do is kind of supplement that, like say, with kind of a remote working team, wherever we do, depending on which project we're working on. So very small core team in total, but like I say, we kind of we can make big bang for our buck.
How hard has it been to build the technical part? Because from outside it seems out of this world.
Cheers, thanks for saying that. In my background, I'm a technologist. I was a developer before I did anything else, and so that's something that I've always been passionate about. And so even though it is technically difficult to achieve some of these things, that's always the part that feels most natural to me, and so the kind of most common thing to achieve. I think the real hard thing is the human relations. Getting a team to kind of vibe and kind of gel together. But yeah, I mean, obviously with technology, one of the things we're playing right now is with kind of AI, being able to do that in a much more effective way. And there, the kind of the mass data that you have and the training models to achieve these things, is quite a shift from what I'm used to from a technologist. And so that's definitely a challenge. And really being able to do all of this in real time. There are some solutions that can do it, by a lot of pre-processing, certainly with video side of things. But being able to do it in real time, where a user takes action without you having to do anything, and it just happens. That's really the key. So, but yeah, we're certainly getting there. Our kind of watchword is always kind of keeping everything under sub-second. So, anything takes longer than that, then you've lost the user, that they've gone. So, yeah, it really is the kind of time is always the biggest kind of barrier that we come up against.
Have you raised any funding?
No, like I said, I've started a few SaaS businesses over the last 20 years, and so I've been fortunate enough to be able to kind of bootstrap or self-fund this one. I have taken VC funding in the past in previous businesses, and I'm not really a massive fan of that, to be honest, because you tend to have as a founder a certain vision, and obviously when you take on funding, maybe sometimes you're taking different decisions, based on having to kind of the time pressures of returns of that a VC might require, and that's not necessarily always in the best interest of the business's long-term objectives. And so I was quite keen for this business to be able to kind of avoid that route and do that. And so far that's been a successful decision.
Do you think you found product market fit?
Yeah, I think so. We've grown. We kind of launched in April 2020, so just as kind of the COVID kicked in, and when we first, or before we launched, should I say, in my mind, I've always considered myself like a technologist, but also kind of a marketer through the businesses that I've set up, and so we were very much squarely focused on the marketing organization type businesses. But as I mentioned earlier on in the podcast, a majority of our customers, not majority, but a lot of our customers are using it in this sales sort of way. And they kind of came to us in the early days of COVID when lots of kind of salespeople were having to work in a different sort of way. They couldn't pick up the phone and talk to somebody because nobody was in their offices anymore. And so they had to rely more on email. And so we saw this groundswell of kind of salespeople coming to our product and finding it very, very kind of effective in doing that. And so it's almost like we found product market fit by accident, in that we were focusing on one area, and then this whole other kind of a segment of the market came to us, and so they kind of found product market fit for us in a way.
What did you say was the biggest challenge? You mentioned building the team, building the relationship. Would you say is that the biggest one since starting the company?
Yeah, I think certainly, any business is reliant on people, and that's always the kind of the most dynamic element, I think, of a business, something that it can change, very, very quickly. But I think also, that aside, the speed of change of technology, and obviously people talk about AI now, and AR, augmented reality. Those two elements are so fast paced that as a business, you've got to balance kind of looking at that and focusing on that versus, what was our roadmap? So if we decided a roadmap 18 months, 2 years ago, it would be unrecognizable today because of, the fast pace of technology. And sometimes you've got to, you've got to kind of stick to your guns, and sometimes you've got to abandon things or change things, to focus on the new. And that's always a challenge, trying to get that right, rather than just leaping from one thing to the next all the time and maybe creating not the best product because you're not investing the full amount of time, versus also having like the latest technological advancement. So I think again that still comes down to a human decision, but it's the technology pace that is kind of creating the issue.
Yeah.
Or opportunity.
Okay. I wanted to know what has been your best growth tactic for getting new people to the platform.
Yeah. I think for us, one of the most interesting growth strategies we've done. Again, it comes back to the kind of the visualization. It's one of our clients, AdWorld. They're putting on these kind of regular events, and what they wanted to do was when somebody registered for their event, they wanted to send out an email saying, "Thanks for registering." And so what they did is they created like an event ticket, but it was a personalized one, so it looked kind of like had the person's details on it, whatever. Their company name, maybe their logo. And it kind of, when people registered and they received this, email with this personalized image in it, it kind of created this moment of delight for something maybe not people had seen before. So and there were also gifts, so there's kind of a movement in there as well, which kind of draws the eye in. And so what they found was that recipients, people that registered for the events, and sometimes sharing these to their social channels to say, "Hey, look, I've just received this. This is really cool. I'm going to this event, whenever the date may be." And that was without even any prompting. And so then they started to kind of, in these thanks for registering emails, actually saying, "Oh, it'd be great if you could share this. And if you use this hashtag, then you're going to get into some sort of potential to win something." And so we kind of spoke to them and saw this, wow, that's a really great kind of use case. And so we did an A/B test with some of our clients. And what we found is that the amount of registrants that an event was getting, we did it at 37 events and about 45,000 registrants in total. So it's a reasonable sized data set. But the amount of registrants when they were using these personalized event gifts increased by over 60%. And the attendance went from something like average of 30% to almost 50%. So not only are you getting more people in the pot, but more people were then actually engaging and turning up. And so that was, it's one of those ones that it was a happy kind of find. Like we didn't go out thinking about how we're going to do this, but just saw, the success that one of the clients was having, and again, for them, it wasn't a planned strategy. It was very much kind of, they just kind of clocked what was happening with their prospects sharing this, and they tapped into that. And that was kind of like, an unexpected find. So they're always nice to see.
Thank you for sharing. What is your vision for the future of Hyperise?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as I mentioned already before, that kind of the rapid growth of AI is pretty phenomenal. And so some of the things that we're doing, and people listening to this may be familiar with things like talk about kind of like deep fakes and those sort of things. But and that generally tends to be some kind of famous actor or celebrity or whatever, and they're creating these deep fakes of them for, like, I saw one that was like a Star Wars trailer, but with like various different actors kind of in there as kind of a deep fake, or that sort of thing. But using that in a professional capacity, so kind of rather than recording a lot of videos, having said the lip syncing and the voice cloning is all done dynamically via AI, something that we're investing in heavily here. And again, obviously, it's all about using things that you could do manually now, but would be prohibitive to do, kind of for 1,000 people, but you might record a video for one person. So being able to do that, I wouldn't say it's the holy grail, but certainly from a personalization perspective, and being able to kind of do these sort of things at scale and at mass is certainly the kind of the near term future. In terms of the long term future, well, I'm not sure I would even like to hazard a guess. The pace that things are moving at these days, that you can't really look too further down the line than than like say 8, 10 months, 12 months, sort of time frame.
I was curious to know your full backstory. So if you can walk us through the companies that you had and how you started your career.
Yeah, so I started off as a developer. So the first 8 or 10 years, no, 8 or so years of my life, I was a developer, and then more of a kind of project program manager, and that kind of career culminated in me working for Adidas, which is obviously a great brand, and I really enjoyed kind of being associated with a brand that was so recognizable. And when somebody, the inevitable question people ask you what you do, it's much easier to kind of explain it when it's related to a product or something that they have some sort of affinity with. And that was kind of, I'd say, back in 98, 99. And then purely by chance, I was looking to buy a new car, and somebody mentioned to me, hey, you can import cars now and save money. And that kind of led to my first venture, which was this car import business, which I exited in 2003. And then I spent 10 years traveling around the world, living in Sweden, Australia, South Africa, Thailand. And that was an amazing experience. And I created some other online businesses along the way, like a product price comparison site, consumer products, that sort of thing. We compared over 1 million products from thousands of retailers, and that was like an affiliate-based product. So I was able to travel around the world with effectively me and a few remote workers, but generate hundreds of thousands of savings and revenue along the way. Whilst I was in Australia, I worked with a company called Geekdom, which was like a tech incubator, and I really enjoyed that. Just having the insight into regularly kind of on a monthly basis, having pitches in and kind of demo days, and that side of things, kind of almost being on the opposite side from being the entrepreneur with the idea, and that was really interesting. But what that did was make me realize that I definitely preferred to be on the other side. And I came back to the UK in 2010 and started App Institute, which is a code-free mobile app building platform.
Okay.
So kind of focused towards small businesses, from hairdressers, takeaway, beauticians, etc., where code-free with no kind of tech expertise can create, choose a relevant template and build a platform and get it in the app stores, in the Android and Apple app stores, and really make a difference. That business is still going today. I'm still the CEO of that, and we have tens of thousands of customers worldwide, all self-serving, signing up for their, signing up to our platform and building their own apps. And so that's incredibly gratifying to see that, especially when I might be on a traveling somewhere and going to a restaurant and see they're using an app built on our platform. That's pretty amazing. And then, as I mentioned, obviously Hyperise is the most recent business that I started in early 2020.
And what's your best piece of advice for a starting founder?
I think the thing that I always say to anybody that I'm talking to in that case is to take small steps, because everything can seem very overwhelming when you first start, but it's take small steps, but do them quickly. Because I think, you can kind of procrastinate and kind of get stuck in the detail if you take things in too bigger chunks, if it like. So, find how you can split up your idea or your project, and kind of do it in very small ways, and try to validate as much as possible as you go without super investment. I see people, especially like in the app industry, people have almost everyone has an idea for an app, and typically the cost of developers these days, you could spend £100,000 having an app developed, but there's probably a much more simpler way that you can validate that idea doing much less without spending all of that money. And I think when that's the case, always look to kind of see where those quick wins are. Like the Airbnb guys, when they first started, they just rocked up at an airport and spoke to people. Hey, can I help you find, somewhere to stay? And that's a brilliant example of, if you had to build the infrastructure of what Airbnb has now, you'd be spending many tens of thousands, but you can validate that, without spending virtually anything, just by kind of putting yourself in front of the customer and validating the idea. So you can save yourself some time and a lot of money by doing that.
That's a great example, and thank you for sharing this mindset. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
What's your favorite SaaS product apart from Hyperise?
So as a kind of a B2B business, obviously our customers are other business organizations. We find there's a lot of value in LinkedIn as an outreach tool. And so using a LinkedIn automation tool can really help in terms of kind of making that a kind of a repeatable, refined process. And we use Expandy.io as a LinkedIn automation tool. And that's obviously with Hyperise, we integrate with lots of tools and lots of LinkedIn tools. And so I have been privileged enough to kind of work with many, but the team, as much as the software, are amazing at Expandy. And so, I've had a lot of, or we've experienced a lot of growth through the effectiveness of that platform, and the capabilities that brings. So yes, certainly, I would never hesitate in recommending them as the go-to for LinkedIn automation.
Thank you for sharing. Is there anything else that you want to tell us on today's podcast?
Oh, good question. I'm not sure actually. It feels like we've covered so much, but obviously, if anybody does have any questions or would like to contact me, just search me on LinkedIn. Just search for Ian Naylor, and I'll be happy to have a chat or help if I can.
Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks again for having me today.